Marco had already said that Max was indicated he was unhappy with it. Max said that speaks for itself and confirmed it was not an accident.
After Red Bull's latest stupidity, Max Verstappen finally spoke and publicly announced his new deal with Mercedes. This is the same guy who dragged Red Bull out of their loser era and handed them championships, but now he's getting treated like background noise while the engineers keep serving him garbage engines and acting deaf.
Catch-ups, the circumstances haven't been ideal. And with a little smile on his face, he says, yeah, I'd have hoped the team would have taken this into...
So, do you also think Red Bull just threw away its dynasty for cheap politics?
But I think from Max's perspective, he's got a long-term contract. There are exit clauses.
And honestly, it's clear why Max is so furious. Red Bull's once unbeatable empire is cracking open, and they're taking everything for granted.
Problem. He's talked a lot about the RB20's issues last year, the RB21's issues this year.
Their newest cars, the RB20 and RB21, are nowhere near what a champion needs. They're slow, shaky, and struggling badly, while rival teams like McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari are exploding forward with new ideas and faster machines. The real problem? Inside Red Bull, the hunger is gone.
He's been pushing Red Bull not to sort of hide behind excuses.
The engineers who once fought for every tenth of a second now feel cold and lazy. They're still sitting on old victories, while the rest of the grid is racing into the future. But the worst blow came when Adrian Newey, the genius behind almost every successful Red Bull car, decided to walk away. His departure didn't just hurt their designs. It ripped out the very heart of Red Bull's technical strength. Without Newey, the so-called champions now look lost, scrambling to fix a broken ship while the competition sails ahead.
Red Bull's problem at the moment is there's a danger it finishes fourth in the Constructors' Championship.
It's not just the car that's falling apart at Red Bull. It's the team's very foundation, the trust between drivers and management, and it's collapsing faster than anyone expected. Inside Red Bull, internal politics, favoritism, and chaos have replaced loyalty and unity. For years, Red Bull prided itself on its ruthless attitude. If you're not good enough, you're out. But now that use and throw system isn't scaring rivals. It's scaring away their own talent. And nobody saw that more clearly than Max Verstappen himself. The brutal proof came with the case of Liam Lawson.
Lewis Hamilton talked about, for example, he said it was harsh. You know, after 2 races, you've got to have belief in these people. And Esteban Ocon talked about, you know, the need for young drivers coming up. You can't always beat them with a stick.
Lawson, a highly rated Red Bull Junior, was promoted to the senior team after just a few races with Racing Bulls. But after only 2 Grand Prix, the 2025 Australian Grand Prix and the Chinese Grand Prix, Red Bull dropped him without hesitation. According to Liam himself, speaking to Sky Sports on April 2nd, 2025, he thought the plan was to give him more time. Instead, he found out he was being replaced via a phone call just days after the China race.
I see no reason why Liam Lawson can't get into Q3 this weekend if he hits the ground running.
2 races. That's all Red Bull gave him before pushing him aside for Yuki Tsunoda. Max Verstappen, who had spent nearly a decade fighting under the Red Bull banner, watched it happen with disbelief. If loyalty meant so little for the rising stars of the team, how much longer could he trust Red Bull with his own future?
Where everyone's scratching their heads and going, well, why were you in such a rush to change things? Because actually, all you've done is swap drivers and actually improve results.
Well, actually,
the situation with Lawson wasn't just cruel. It exposed an even uglier truth lurking beneath the surface. Reports emerged from multiple sources, including Racing News 365 and GP Log, that Honda, Red Bull's engine partner, had played a role in the decision. Ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix, Honda, desperate to have a Japanese driver in the Red Bull seat at their home race, allegedly pushed hard behind the scenes. The rumor, first hinted at by journalist Tom Clarkson during the pre-Suzuka press conference, suggested that Honda offered Red Bull financial incentives to guarantee Yuki Tsunoda a seat for the Japanese GP. It wasn't about performance, it wasn't about merit, It was about selling a storyline for the sponsors and the home crowd.
If things start going wrong now, they snowball, and then into 27, you have a poor car, you've got trouble your power unit, you've lost your best driver, and things aren't looking very rosy.
Lawson's firing was a business transaction. Pure and simple. One that blindsided not just the driver, but many inside the paddock. Lawson admitted in his interview with Sky Sports that the conversations he was having with Red Bull bosses gave him no indication that he was at risk. In his words, the discussions we were having weren't really leaning in this direction.
Now, you don't commit your future long-term beyond next year. I think you want to be a free agent at the end of 26. And probably from Max's perspective, he'd probably stick it out anyway in 26 unless this year turns to complete disaster.
Meanwhile, Red Bull tried to cover their tracks. Racing Bull's team boss, Laurent Mekies, gave a carefully worded explanation, telling reporters in Suzuka on April 3, 2025, that the team needed experience next to Max Verstappen to secure critical constructors' points. But behind the corporate spin, it was obvious what had happened. Even Verstappen wasn't shielded from the fallout. Sources close to Red Bull insiders, including a report from Motorsport Total, revealed that Max was shocked by the speed and coldness of the move. Not because he believed Lawson was unbeatable, but because it sent a clear signal that no one, not even promising young drivers groomed for years in the Red Bull program, could expect fair treatment anymore.
Clearly Red Bull know they've got to upgrade the car. Red Bull say that effectively they have 5 Grand Prix to do it, and if they can't do it within the next 5 races, it's over. It's going to be too late.
In fact, the way Red Bull handled the setup changes added more fuel to the fire. After kicking Lawson out, Helmut Marko confirmed publicly on April 2nd that Red Bull had decided to modify the car's aggressive settings to make it easier to drive, but only after Yuki Tsunoda took over the seat. Speaking to German outlet Automotor und Sport, Marko admitted they were working on a less aggressive setup to help Tsunoda adjust. And that's why we can say the cracks between Max Verstappen and Red Bull were not created overnight. They had been forming quietly, and by early 2025, they exploded in private. According to reports from Dutch outlet De Telegraaf, published on March 28, 2020, Verstappen's fury boiled over during a tense series of meetings with Red Bull executives in Dubai, right after the chaotic Chinese Grand Prix. Max didn't mince words. In the meetings, attended by Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, and key senior engineers, Verstappen openly challenged Red Bull's management. His frustration wasn't about losing races. It wasn't even about finishing second. It was about Red Bull focusing more on off-track politics than fixing the on-track disaster. He pointed directly to the handling of the Lawson-Tsunoda swap. Sources close to the team, as reported by Planet F1, said Verstappen was beyond frustrated that the team wasted critical engineering hours on driver drama, while the RB21 remained a fundamentally flawed car. At a time when McLaren and Ferrari were rolling out rapid-fire upgrades every race weekend, Red Bull's garage was fighting about sponsorship deals, media optics, and which junior driver to sacrifice. Meanwhile, Verstappen watched helplessly as the RB21 continued to lose ground. Fastest pit stop analysis from the Chinese Grand Prix weekend showed that Red Bull lost an average of 0.4 seconds per lap to McLaren in race pace, a staggering number for a reigning champion team. The engineers, stretched thin and distracted, failed to deliver any major updates for the Suzuka weekend either. By the end of the Dubai meetings, Verstappen knew the truth. If they wouldn't listen to him now, when the team's future was clearly on fire, they never would. And while Red Bull was busy self-destructing, Mercedes was preparing the ultimate countermove. Behind the scenes, Toto Wolff, the mastermind behind Mercedes' dominant years, saw the storm coming. According to Sky Sports F1's Ted Kravitz, speaking on April 1, 2020, Wolff initiated informal contacts with the Verstappen camp as early as the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in March. With Lewis Hamilton already set to leave Mercedes for Ferrari at the end of the 2025 season, Mercedes had a giant, superstar-sized hole to fill, and Max Verstappen was the perfect fit. Sources within Mercedes, speaking to the race on March 27th, confirmed that Mercedes' 2026 power unit project, led by Hewell Thomas, was already ahead of schedule, and crucially, significantly outperforming Red Bull powertrain simulations and dyno testing. In plain terms, Mercedes' 2026 engine looks ready to dominate, while Red Bull's is full of doubts. Verstappen knew it too, and Red Bull could do nothing to stop what was coming. So, what do you think? Is Verstappen right to leave Red Bull, or is it a move he'll regret? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.